Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I wanted to give you my long-term review of the Lenovo Legion Go S, and this is specifically the SteamOS version of the console. There is another version of this that has Windows installed, but I picked up the SteamOS version because I used to have a Steam Deck, specifically the 512 OLED model, and the reason why I switched over was because I tend to play things sometimes that are a little bit more demanding, and the Steam Deck was beginning to show its age a little bit, so I thought it might be a good idea to experiment with the Lenovo Legion Go S. I had heard great things before I picked it up, and I just decided to give it a shot. So I'm going to give you guys my thoughts here. I'm going to give you guys the things that I don't like about this thing, which there are some, and then I'm going to tell you why I ended up loving it. Maybe even more than the Steam Deck. So just quickly to talk about the things that I'm not crazy about. The trackpad on this thing is trash. If you have a Steam Deck, or if you want a handheld with the good trackpads, get a Steam Deck. Don't get this. The trackpad on this thing, see it here, that tiny little square, basically useless. I never use it. I don't really play games that use a trackpad anyway, so I don't really have a need for it. I do kind of miss it when I'm like typing, but other than that, that's the trackpad. It's way better on the Steam Deck. I did get used to having the joysticks at the top with the Steam Deck, and I feel like I did like that placement a little bit more than this. This kind of mimics the Xbox controller, which is fine too, but I think the Steam Deck's joystick placement is a little bit more comfortable. And the third thing that I kind of miss the Steam Deck for is the OLED screen. This is not an OLED screen, but it has a higher refresh rate, which is really nice when you play games that can take full advantage of it. And the screen is still very high quality. It's just not as rich as the OLED screen on the Steam Deck is. But those are kind of like the big things that I keep thinking about. The more I use this thing, the more I remember what it was like to have the Steam Deck. And the battery life is also a big concern. It's not very long at all, really, unless you're playing something that's like a smaller indie game. It might last a little bit longer, but the Steam Deck wasn't really known for having great battery life either, so not too big of an issue. And I guess it's just more general issue with these PC handhelds, with all of them really. This isn't unique to the Lenovo Legion Go S. But now I kind of want to talk about the things that make me love this thing. First of all, the build quality, insanely good, comparable to the Steam Deck. They're both really well built devices. I do like that the Lenovo Legion Go S has these two little switches back here that turn your triggers into hair triggers. That's really cool. That's not something that Steam Deck has. I don't think it did, at least. But that's cool. It has two back buttons where the Steam Deck had four. So if you do use those a lot, keep that in mind before you go ahead and purchase this. The Steam Deck does have four back buttons on it. The main reason why I love this thing is because it has SteamOS. It's a little bit more powerful than the Steam Deck is, and basically the same reason why I fell in love with the Steam Deck in the first place. It helps me discover games that I wouldn't necessarily play on my setup here, and also it helps me to revisit games that I've either purchased in the past and never played, or games that I started years ago and never finished. If you have like AAA games in your library that came out a few years ago, they're most likely going to run very well on this thing. I've been playing a lot of The Division 2. It runs great on the Lenovo Legion Go S. That's like my preferred way of playing that game now. Playing Diablo 4 on this thing, great. No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk, The Witcher, all like the games that you really hear about in those top 5, top 10 games to get on your Steam Deck videos. Those are all running really great, but I've played shooters on here. I've played Wolfenstein, played Divinity Original Sin 2, and other CRPGs. The CRPGs are a little bit tricky I don't really like how they control on the handheld personally, but that's your thing. They run great on this thing really. So I have no complaints as far as performance. The games that I've been playing on this thing, I've knocked out a lot of games from my backlog thanks to this. I've also discovered a lot of new games recently. I've picked up Mugenics, I've picked up Megabonk. I never played The Long Dark, and I recently picked it up on sale. I think it was like $3, and it's great on the Steam Deck. Sorry, on the Lenovo Legion Go S. If you play AAA games or games that are maybe a little bit newer, that might be a little bit more demanding, this could be the way to go. I run Arc Raiders on this thing. It doesn't run perfectly. It's like at 40 frames per second, but it's perfectly playable. I have gotten more use out of this thing than I would have expected. Even the Steam Deck. I was always a handheld type of person. I grew up with the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation Vita, Nintendo 3DS, all those things. And when the Steam Deck was coming out, I was kind of looking at it like, why would I want something that was so big? But I quickly realized that this is a different sort of type of handheld. This doesn't leave the house really, and I just play it in a different way than I would a smaller handheld like a PS Vita or something like that. I normally play this before I go to bed, or when my wife is on the couch watching TV and I'm next to her playing something. This thing, that's the primary use that I get out of it. But I think these devices are really cool for somebody that already has an established game library. You find yourselves in situations where sometimes you don't want to be at your setup playing on your PC, but you do want to play something. I feel like this is a very good alternative, and I've gotten a lot of use of it. If you do decide to pick one of these things up, whether it be this one or the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally X or something else, I know that there's a lot of them now, but I would highly recommend something that has SteamOS on it. It's a console-like experience. It's simple. Personally, I wouldn't want to deal with one of these things that has Windows on it. Windows is bad enough as it is, but the SteamOS really makes it super easy to just pick up and play, have everything organized, have everything looking good. And there is also a big emulation community with these devices. I haven't really experimented too much with it yet. I do plan on doing something like that soon, but primarily I've just been playing the games in my Steam library that I haven't played for years, or new indie games that have been coming out recently. So that's the video, guys. I kind of just wanted to give some unfiltered thoughts on the Lenovo Legion Go S after about 6 months of use. I really love it. It helps me get through my backlog. It helps me when I don't have the energy to sit at my setup for hours after work. And it's just a great device, and I highly recommend it. But I want to thank you guys for watching, and leave a comment down below if you found this useful. I'll see you in the next one.